custom wedding invitations come with a hefty price tag. Sure, there's Canva or Etsy for quick templates, but if you want something truly custom, hiring a designer can cost hundreds of dollars. But with Procreate, your iPad, and a little creativity, you can design your own stunning invitations without breaking the bank. And the best part, the design we're making today isn't just for weddings. You can use it for save the dates, baby announcements, birthdays, any special event or occasion. If we haven't met before, hi there, I'm Nicole from iPad Calligraphy, where I teach curious creatives how to use the iPad for lettering and design. In today's video, we're creating a professional invitation design with a gorgeous color palette, floral motifs, and custom lettering. Plus, you'll get your own free, ready-to-use template with the trim lines, a custom Procreate stamp brush, and the color palette we're using so that you can easily follow along. You'll find the download link to that below. And there's also a critical pro tip that you'll want to hear. At the end of the video, I'll show you why test prints are absolutely essential. After I discovered something that could have ruined the whole print run, I ended up making a couple of key design tweaks after seeing it printed. And there's also a crucial tip that you need to know when you're cutting your invitations, which will give you that professional finish with no white edges. So stick around for that. Let's dive in. Okay, start by opening your 5x7 card template for Procreate. You'll see crop lines and a grey transparent area that indicates the card's printable area. This grey space won't be visible after printing. It shows where the card will be trimmed, ensuring the ink reaches the edges. Make sure to turn the layer visibility off on this layer before printing, as it's just for a reference. So let's start by changing the background color. Tap on the background layer and select the dark blue color in your color palette. Next, use the frame stamp brush included in the download linked below. I have the lemon yellow color active. Tap the canvas to stamp the frame shape and center it using the card area layer as a guide. For better precision, you can turn on guidelines by going to the canvas panel and then tap on Edit Drawing Guide. Increase the grid size to maximum to give both horizontal and vertical center points. And you can also adjust the color for better visibility. This will help you align everything to the center of the canvas as you go. Now, using the selection tool, which is the little S in the top navigation, set it to rectangle from the context menu and select the bottom area of the frame. Swipe with 3 fingers to cut and paste it to a new layer. And with snapping turned on, we're going to move the frame to the bottom position of the card, making sure that it stays aligned with the top edge so it matches. Next, duplicate the top frame layer and move it so that you're filling the border gap, ensuring it lines up, and then select the excess scalloped border part and just delete that so that you're left with the straight border lines on the left and right sides. Merge the layers now by pinching them together, and you can rename that merge layer to frame just to keep things tidy. Now let's add some custom dots around the frame. So create a new layer and select a brush. I'm using my custom copper plate brush here, but this syrup brush in Procreate's default inking set will work as well. So draw small dots around the edge of the frame. They don't need to be perfect. Just make sure you're keeping them in a fairly straight line as you go around the full frame area. Card area layer is helpful here as well because you can avoid putting them outside that trim area and you know that you're inside the boundaries of the card. Once that's done, we can add an oval outline in the center as a guide for another dotted frame for our text. So you can just tap on the outside dots layer thumbnail to add a new layer above it. I'm using a pre-made oval stamp brush from my Shapes and Ornaments pack, but you can draw it freehand if you prefer. Position the oval centrally and make sure it's large enough to fit your text inside. Reduce the opacity of this layer now as we're just using it for a guide, and create another layer for the dots and follow the same process as before. Hey friends, it's Nicole here, popping in for a moment with something special. If you've ever wanted to create stunning lettering on your iPad but didn't know where to start, I've got a free workshop that's perfect for you. In this 1-hour training, I'll walk you through the exact steps that you need to write beautiful calligraphy even if you have messy handwriting or no artistic experience. So you'll learn how to master smooth, professional looking strokes on the slippery iPad screen, and you'll discover techniques that save you from wasting hours on random YouTube videos and leave you with a clear action plan to kickstart your lettering journey with confidence. So this free workshop is available right now, and you can grab your spot by going to ipadcalligraphy.com/workshop. That's ipadcalligraphy.com/workshop. All right, back to it. So with the frame and the dots in place, we'll now just add a decorative motif in the middle for the sides. The stamp I'm using is a motif that's included in my shapes and ornaments set, but you can draw something similar if you don't have that. Create a new layer and then stamp your motif. You can rotate it and place it into position. If you swipe left, choose duplicate, and then make sure your arrow tool is selected. You can flip the copy horizontally using the bottom menu here and align it to the other side. Swipe right on each layer to select it, and then tap on the group option here to keep everything tidy. You can name that group frame. Next, let's draw some pretty vines and flower details around the frame. Start by creating a new layer and use the teal green to draw the main outline of some vines. Then you want to add a layer above this and just draw some simple leaves and more vines coming off this one. We'll then add a darker vein running along the middle of the leaves for a bit more detail. Once done, we can add a little shading to the leaves. So to do this, create a new layer above the vine, draw a few lines in the darker green, and then use a soft shading brush to add a bit of subtle shading. If you tap the layer and choose clipping mask from the menu, the shading will stay within the boundary of the leaf layer, so it won't go outside the lines. And next we're going to add some cute flowers. So create a new layer and use the light lilac to draw the flower shape. Once the shapes are in place, you can add a darker purple to the center of the flower. Now we're going to keep this as the master, so duplicate the flower and use the copy to reposition it around other parts of the design. The original can be a master copy for the other versions so that we can preserve the quality. And to keep them looking natural, just vary their size, rotation, and placement. Next, let's add a few buds using that light lilac color again. I'm just going to draw some small buds around the vine. Now to finish off, create a new layer above the leaves. We're going to add a light orange to the leaves where the light would hit. So imagining it coming from the top left. And then once you're done and you've got a clipping mask on it, use the shading brush to just smooth the color and create a soft lighting effect. Finally, add some small blue dots on a new layer just around the design for a finishing touch. And once you're happy with the layout, group all the floral elements into one group. So just swipe to the right and then hit group. Duplicate that layer group by swiping to the left. Depending on your iPad's storage capacity, you may want to merge this second group to maximize your available layers, as Procreate's layer limit varies based on your device's storage. And we're going to flip it horizontally and position it in the opposite corner. So if you have snapping switched on, that should just be aligned as you move it over to the other side. Repeat the process using a duplicate of that second version for the other corners to fill the space. Next, we'll duplicate the flower and vine design again and rotate it to fit the bottom center. And I'm going to refine it just by erasing some parts to ensure it fits a bit better. To maintain symmetry, I duplicated this, flipped it, and placed it in the top center area. Then I followed the same process to create the elegant vines framing the oval shape. I started with a leafy vine and then I added flowers by duplicating it from that master version we made earlier. And then once the inner vine layers were complete, I grouped those, duplicated the group, and flipped them to fill those remaining 3 sections around the frame. And finally, I filled in any gaps by drawing additional vines and flowers using the same method of duplicating and reflecting for balance. And there you have it. We have a beautifully framed wedding invitation ready for the final touches. And the last step that we're going to do before we print the design is to add the text. So I'm actually using a mix of hand lettering and text. And I prefer to create my lettering in a separate document, making it larger so I can focus on the details. Once I was happy with it, I copied the lettering into the design and I changed it to white. So you can do this by just swiping 2 fingers on the lettering layer, and this locks the transparency. Then tap the layer to open the menu and choose Fill Layer, which will change it to the color that you have active. Next, I added the event details using text. So under the wrench icon and the add panel, you just tap add text. To edit the content, just tap the thumbnail and select edit text. And you can also use the double A's in the bottom menu to adjust the font and the size and the layout options. For this design, I used an elegant serif font called Garibaldi. I initially chose this light blue color for the text, but you'll soon see why that wasn't the best choice. Now that our design is complete, it's time to see how it looks printed out. I chose to print with Officeworks here in Australia, but if you're based in the US, FedEx Office, Staples, or local print shops are a great alternative. So wherever you are, look for a service that offers high quality color printing and allows you to test a few copies before committing to the full print run. I always recommend doing a test print first, and trust me, it can save you from costly mistakes that waste both your time and money. So here's the first test print. Right away, as I mentioned, I noticed a few issues. So first, the background blue is much darker than I intended. I was aiming for a lighter shade. And second, the text lacks contrast, so the light blue text on the dark blue background is hard to read. And most importantly, the crop marks are completely lost because they blend into that dark background, making trimming really difficult. So luckily, test prints allow for adjustments, and after some tweaks, I got a much better result. So the lighter blue background elevated the design and made it more elegant, and the white text was much easier to read. And then those white crop marks made them really clearly visible on the dark background for trimming. Now let's move on to cutting the invitations. As mentioned, the trim marks ensure the ink extends to the edge and prevent unwanted white borders. So you'll see in action how this works now. If we were to cut precisely along the edge without the trim marks, you'd have to be extremely precise to avoid any gaps or have white edges from the page coming into the design. So I'm going to use a metal ruler and align the trim mark on the top and bottom. But here's the tip. Don't cut all the way through. If you slice from edge to edge, you're going to completely cut off the trim lines for the next cuts. Instead, start slightly inside the page so that part of the page isn't completely removed and the trim marks remain visible for the later cuts. And then repeat the process for the remaining sides. I prefer to pull the blade towards me, so you can just rotate the mat if that feels more comfortable. You see what happens if we remove the edge completely. This side no longer has the trim marks, so I have to do my best to carefully align the ruler and use the existing cuts as a guide. And there you have it, beautifully trimmed wedding invitations ready to be sent out to all the guests. I hope you enjoyed today's tutorial and it gave you some inspiration on how to design your own custom invitations. And remember, if you're ready to learn lettering and Procreate on the iPad, check out my free workshop at ipadcalligraphy.com/workshop. I will see you in the next video.